Okay, so we're going to go ahead and build this website now. I want to take a moment and talk about the process that we're going to use to do this. We have on the screen here is the finished website, and I will keep this up in this tab here so we can refer back to it. We're using this as a reference so that we can build something that looks exactly like this. And in the other tab here, there's nothing there now. That's the tab that we'll be working in as we build the various elements of the website. In the text editor, we have our beginning place, and we have our beginning CSS. And in the exercise files folder, there's a separate folder for each lesson in the chapter, and each lesson is on its own video. And within each lesson folder, you'll see there's usually a beginning place for the HTML and a beginning place for the CSS. And this will change a little bit as we go on, and I'll discuss how and why it changes as we go on. But this is what you need to know for now, is that this beginning.html is where we're starting, and this beginning.css is where we're starting, and the ending CSS and the ending HTML is more or less where you're going to end up. Your HTML should be functionally identical to what you see there. A little bit of spacing difference here and there is not going to break the bank, as they say, but you want your ending place to be functionally the same as what is in that file. So we're going to begin here now, and you'll be able to see the process as we do this first lesson, which doesn't really have a lot of code. It's mostly about the process. So the first thing we're going to do every single time is we're going to save out the file using Save As in your text editor. And in this case, I'm going to save it as header.html because that's what we're going to end up with at the end of these first few lessons. And that'll go in the same folder where the existing beginning HTML and ending HTML is. So this is this O2 header folder. You'll notice our path up here at the top of the text editor. It's exercise files, O3 website, O2 header, beginning.html. So you want this to be in the same folder. There's the exercise files, website, O2 header. Save that file out. And then with the CSS, it's always going to be called main.css. So you want to save as the CSS and do the same thing with that. And now we have main.css and header.html. And so the first thing we're going to do here, this is our starting place template, and this is our XHTML template. And so it's just a starting place, and I use these templates so I don't have to type all this stuff out every time I create a new document, and it's all there and it's all correct. And I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to create a link tag in the head. So this goes within the head element, and I'll create a link tag, and this is to link in our external CSS. Link. And so href is the location of the CSS file, and the rel is the relationship, which is style sheet. And the type is always text/CSS. And so we'll save that, and then we'll change the title. So it says, Welcome to Groundswell. And save. I like to save as I go along. And in the body, there's going to be a div. And this is our outer div for the entire document. And that will end down here before the ending body tag. And I like to put in a comment so that as the document gets big, it's easy to see what's what. And so you'll be able to find that at the top and know which is which. And then instead of this here, I'm going to have a div ID equals header, and an end div for that, and likewise a comment. And so that is what we're going to put in our HTML file for now. Now we'll go over here to the CSS. We'll put in some starting styles. I like to have some comments. So these are our global default styles. We'll start with a body style. That's just a starting place. I don't typically ever use the default font family, but I like to have one in there just in case. so that's our background. And you'll notice that the path has this dot dot at the beginning of it. That's because image paths in a CSS style sheet are relative to where the style sheet is located, not relative to where the document is located. And you'll notice the main.css is in the CSS folder. If we want to reference the images folder, we have to go up a level first and then to the images folder. So this dot dot does that. And so the margin 0 and padding 0, that allows the content in the body to butt up against the borders of the web browser. Now I'll default for the paragraphs and other text elements. Just give them a reasonable margin. And likewise, I don't usually use those, but it's nice to have them just as a starting place. And now the outer div. And this wraps around the rest of the page. And this creates our space for the outer page, and it also puts our banner at the top of the page so we can position things over it. And so our banner at the top of the page is actually in a background. Let me go ahead and save this and show you on the page. This graphic up here, this says Groundswell, and it has all of the navigational elements on top of it. That's actually that background image. And that's the background image right there. And we also have this FFF to give us a white background for all of our text. And the no repeat means that the banner image will not repeat as a background normally would. It'll only get displayed that once. And so we have the white background, which will go over the rest of the space. So if we go ahead and load this document in the browser now, in this tab, which has nothing in it, I'll go ahead and take this header HTML and drag it out there to the browser. And there we have our background. And you don't see the background image yet because the div doesn't have any vertical size. So there isn't anything there yet to be able to see. If I go in here in the CSS and I just give this temporarily, just give it some vertical height, and we know that that image is 110 pixels high, so I'm just going to say 200 pixels so you can see the end of the image, and you can also see the white comes into play there. And we'll reload in the browser, and there you have it. And so this background here, that's the background image in the body, and this is that outer div. And it has that banner in it at the top. Okay, so we'll take out that height. We'll go ahead and put in the header here. I'm going to make another section. And say div header. And so the header div is going to have some height. And position relative. Now, position relative, without any other positioning information, that makes it qualify as a containing block so that we can do some other positioning relative to its fixed position on the page. So we'll go ahead and save here and reload the document, and now we should just see the header because that header div now has height, and it has the width based on the containing block, which is the outer div. So this outer div gives it the width, and because this header is contained within it, it inherits that width, and then its height is 110 pixels, so 770 by 110 is the size of that image, and so we can see that image. The image is the background of the outer div. The header does not have any content at this point. So that is what we're doing in this lesson, and so we have our outer div, we have our div for the header, and we're ready to start putting elements on the header, and we have set up our basic CSS.